Okay, let me go ahead and welcome everybody. I am Dr. Martha House. I'm the Dean of Natural Sciences. I want to welcome you all to the Career STEM panel. I hope Pi Day's been treating you well and you're looking forward to actually eating pie later. Joining me as a co-moderator for this panel is Jacqueline Javier, the manager of work-based learning at Pasadena City College. And I also want to welcome our panelists this afternoon. We appreciate your time and expertise. Each of our panelists will be introducing themselves to you shortly, so I'll move on from there. Before starting, I want to let everybody know that we're going to be moving through the panel asking some questions, but we encourage you to post your questions in the chat. If you would like to address it to a particular panelist, go ahead and put @ with their name. But Jackie and I will be watching the chat so that we can be sure that they see your questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Jackie now.
Thank you, Martha. And right before we get started, we would like to make a land acknowledgement. So the sites that make up Pasadena City College exist on the indigenous homelands of the Tongva people. Pasadena City College and the various faculty, staff, and students who contribute to our programs and support student success recognize that we are all simultaneously teachers, learners, and guests on these lands. This land acknowledgement is a small part of an ongoing process of working to be in good relationship with the land and the people of the land and embodying equity and practice as well as theory. Additionally, we would like to create a safe space, a safe virtual space for our panelists and participants to share their experiences free of judgment, and that our participants receive this message with an open mind. With that, I will turn it over to Martha to lead us into the panel discussion.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Let me manipulate my screen here a little bit. So I'm going to start off by asking our panelists to go along and introduce themselves to all of us. Please tell us your name and your title and give us a brief description of your position and responsibilities, if you would. And we'll go ahead and start with Dolly, please.
Hi, everyone. Happy Pi Day. I've never participated in a Pi Day, but my brother-in-law, Jorge, asked me, and so here I am. I'm super excited to be part of the group. My name is Dolly Bali. I'm part of Microsoft's US education team. So we support all the K-12s and higher eds in the country. And my particular focus is on skilling to get us all the tools, get you guys, the students, the tools that you need to be successful. My background, I've been doing IT now for 21 years, but I graduated from USC in biology, got into med school and decided I did not like blood. And I went back and got my MBA, and here I am. So I live in SoCal, super excited to be here, and grew up basically going to Pasadena every weekend. So this is great. But I look forward to sharing some of my story and getting to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. And now I'll ask that we can hear from Jamal Clue, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamal Clue. I currently work as the senior medical scientist in HIV prevention at Gilead Sciences. In terms of my background, I am from Pasadena originally, grew up right down the street from PCC. Both of my parents went to PCC, very intimately involved with Pasadena, but I haven't been back since I graduated from high school. In terms of my role, it sits within medical affairs. Medical affairs is the medical sounding board of pharmaceutical companies. There are roles in the home office versus out in the field. My position is out in the field. So what we basically do is we communicate the safety and the efficacy of our products to providers and prescribers. And we also support phase 4 clinical research. So if there is a provider that wants to do research from a phase 4 clinical perspective, which is very population specific about a drug. So let's say they want to look at a drug in, let's say, Latino women within Texas. And that's a very specific indication and very specific population in which an investigator could say, hey, Gilead, we want to do research in this population on one of your products. And then we support them in that way. We also attend scientific conferences. And let me back up and say, you don't need to be an MD. I went to medical school, but you don't have to be an MD. You can get a PhD, you can be a nurse practitioner, you can be a pharmacist, you can even be a physician's assistant. Just something in the clinical realm that kind of gets you understanding what it's like to be a clinician and also what it's like to conduct clinical research. Yeah, that's about it. Undergraduate, I went to Princeton University in New Jersey. I got my undergrad in molecular biology with a minor in African American studies. After then, I went to Harvard to get my master's in biology and got my ND from St. George's University. So I welcome any questions and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Jamal. And next we'll hear from Lu Hao. Lu?
Yeah, hi
Right.
everyone. My name is Lu Ho. First, I want to say thank you for having me here today. So I'm a CFA charter holder since 2010 and are in finance industry for about like 12 years so far. My first few years was with fintech firms before I joined Western Asset Management, a fixed income investment shop in Pasadena in 2016. So I'm currently working on this investment grade trading desk. The top priority of my work is to facilitate trading activities and to keep a close eye on our clients' portfolios. So the goal, I think, well, it's true everywhere, is to add value, to guardrail the portfolio, to generate trade ideas, to keep risk at bay, and to generate alpha. We have really a fast-paced work environment, super challenging, and no 2 days are the same. It's very exciting job in my view. My education background, I'm more math finance person. I went to USC for grad school and UCLA for MBA. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next we'll hear from Dave Smith. Dave?
Hello, I'm Dave Smith. Much like Jamal Clue, I was born and raised here in Pasadena. However, unlike Jamal Clue, I've never left Pasadena. As a matter of fact, if you ever see me outside of Pasadena, it's a good chance that it's just someone who looks like me. It's not really me. I have been part of the PCC family for about 10 years. I started off as a student, not a math student. I started off as a music student. And as soon as my professor told me that the only thing I could do with music was teach, I decided to look for a different major. And somehow computer science landed on my lap. And I'm really happy it did. I finished PCC and moved to Cal Poly Pomona to finish my computer science bachelor's degree. While I was still trying to finish my undergraduate degree, I actually landed a job at PCC as a full-time web developer. I told myself I will apply to one school for graduate school, and if I get it, then I will pursue graduate school. Otherwise, I'm just gonna start making money. I applied to Georgia Tech and I actually got in, to my surprise. And so I finished my master's degree there, specializing in interactive intelligence. I became, after being the web developer, I became the lead programmer for Pasadena City College. They basically locked me up inside of a cage in the back of the college. I don't know if you guys knew that there's actually some cages there. I was locked up there. Finally, one day they said, hey, Dave, you're allowed to come out of the cage. How would you like to be a professor? And I was very excited to do that because I've always wanted to have a relationship with students, which I did not have that opportunity when I was a lead programmer analyst. And I've been doing that position for about 2 years, and I expect to retire doing this.
Thanks, Dave. And next we'll hear from Miguel Villasana.
Hey everyone, my name is Miguel Villasana. I currently work in Pasadena for a company called Luxima Technology. I do the software for the company. So basically, it's a high-speed CMOS image sensing company. So we do CMOS sensors that are very, very, very fast. And my job is to be able to communicate with that CMOS sensor so that the user is able to grab images from that sensor and do their analysis or whatever they have to do. I actually started at PCC. Actually, I met Dave there, and we were part of the MESA program at PCC. And I started working there as also at the web office as an IT student. And then I got offered an internship, which I'll go into later into detail. And then after PCC, I went to Cal Poly Pomona, which I got my undergrad in computer engineering. And after that, landed a job at Luxema Technology, and I've been there for 6-7 years now. So yeah, I'll get into a lot of details later as we go on, but that's basically the brief introduction of myself. Okay, and glad to be here, guys.
Thank you, Miguel. And last but not least, we have Kevin Yao from Garmin. Kevin?
Hi everyone. My name is Kevin Yao, and I am a software engineer at Garmin. I'm in the automotive OEM division, and my primary role is to work on the human-machine interface for our car navigation systems. One example of that is the new Ford Mach-E electric vehicle coming out. We work on the centerpiece over here. You're the driver, it's on your right. I worked on implementing various features, debugging issues, and developing the UI. A little background about me, I'm from Temple City, and after high school here, I went to PCC and shortly transferred over to Cal Poly Pomona. I graduated in 2019 with my BS in CS, and I've been at Garmin since. Fun fact, I attended the panel, I attended the Pi Day panel back in 2019. So if you look at the video there, I was there in the audience. Thank you.
All right, full circle for Kevin. Okay, so thank you, panelists. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to ask you, some of you have already addressed this a little bit, but I'll ask you to go ahead and can you tell us about how you found yourself in the line of work you're in today? And, as part of what you're going to be telling us, if there was a specific turning point in your life that helped you decide what to do, is that something that you could share? So we'll go back to, and I'd like to hear from all of our panelists on this topic. Dolly, could you start us off?
Dolly, you're muted.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, there we go. It's Sunday. I used 2 different mute buttons, so my apologies. I was saying I actually went to school to study sciences. So Jamal, when you were talking about molecular bio, it brought back a lot of really deep feelings, about mobile. But really, for me, the turning point was my senior year. A friend of mine started consulting for Deloitte, and I said, you know what, I want to learn more about what you're doing. Meanwhile, I'm applying to med schools and doing all of that. But I found it to be fascinating. I thought I have always been a problem solver, and this allowed me an opportunity to solve problems. So I said, oh my God, this is great. I want to learn more. And you got to travel every week and, all this fanciness back then. Well, little did I know it would be a lifestyle change. But to me, that pivotal moment was straight out of college, doing something that I thought was more aligned. But, I do have to tell you, this is my 21st year. I've had many different pivotal moments. I've had many changes happen where you go down one path and then you change to the other path. But I'm so grateful for all of those, because I am doing what I'm doing now because I took a chance and took, all those moments and all those opportunities and said, you know what, I want to try it. So I'll talk a little bit about later on the way I look at life, which is a tool belt, and every skill that you gain is a different tool in your tool belt. And you know how people, when they have tool belts, they don't have the same tool 10 times, you just have different. So that's how I look at my career and my life, is add as many different tools as I can. So hopefully that's useful.
Thank you, Dolly. Jamal, do you have anything you can share about how you got where you are today and pivotal moments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Martha. So I would echo what Dolly said. Definitely, when I graduated from college, I knew that I wasn't ready to go straight into medical school. So I actually became a professional dancer. I danced in a ballet company for a couple of seasons. And so I just say all of this to say that follow your passions. That's so critical. You only get to live once, right? And so if you have other passions, I think Dave talked about music, which is, powerful in itself. I'm sure he's still a musician and still playing on the side. Find your passions and do that as well. And I'm also very passionate about medicine. It was public health that got me going back to medicine, because at first I wasn't going to go back into medicine. And then I started to talk to some of my colleagues. I noticed that HIV was impacting Black and Brown communities disproportionately. And I said, what is going on here? We didn't learn about this in college. We lived in this little bubble. So the more I started learning about it, the more I started to understand some of the critical issues that were affecting health disparities in America. It led me straight back to medical school. And now I'm in a position to actually impact change, talk about health disparities, talk about some of the issues that are disproportionately affecting Black and Brown people as it relates to impacting the HIV epidemic. So I'm really in a great position where I found my passions, I fused them together. I still am a dance connoisseur. I still go to ballets all the time. I'm still very involved. I have friends that are professional dancers. So I just urge you, don't do it for the money, do it for the passion. So find something that really, really makes you happy, because when you wake up every day to go to work, you want to be happy. That's what's critical. And the money will come. The money will definitely come.
Thank you, Jamal. Lou, how about you? Do you have anything you'd like to share?
I would say for me, it's not a very difficult decision to get into this industry. Like very natural interest, I would say, in finance. Just think about finance. It's actually everywhere and is indispensable. You may think it's as simple as money, and then you think of different form of money like digital money, Bitcoin, how you spend the money, you Venmo someone, that's the fintech I was in before. And then it's a branch of finance. And then you think more money, what do you do with it? You buy stocks, you buy GameStop, you buy AMC, that's like investment. You buy ETF, you buy funds, that's actually what I do right now as a professional money manager. And think bigger, a company, any company, you name one, Netflix. Like you watch Netflix and they produce their own content since 2013. And how can they achieve that? First thing first, they need to fund it. So any company doing any projects, they borrow money from stocks, using bond, and now back to us. And we lend money to the companies, and the companies make things happen. And we lend money to government and treasury bonds that keeps the country running. So back to the question, I just feel finance is an amazing field. It's very important field. So I just come to it. And if say, well, I won't say I have a turning point, but while I was working for fintech, some of our clients are actually investment firms. And then it's just gradually, I feel like that's a more challenging world to be in. That's why I kind of applied for MBA program in UCLA and kind of like grabbing opportunities, and then got myself into a investment firm. So from serving an investment firm to actually be in one. And I agree to what Dolly and Jamal just said, like follow your passion and know what you truly like, and then try all you can to be in it.
Thank you, Lou. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to add to this question about how you talked a little bit about your transition from music to mathematics and how you ended up where you are, but was there a specific turning point? I mean, was it really your professor who said you can't get a job in music that caused you to shift your interests? Or, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, there's really not much more I can say than what the other panelists say. I think what really helped me was understanding that we don't have to only have one passion. And that was something that I always thought my entire life. I want to be a rock star. I want to go and win a Grammy. I want to play on stage, right? And that was the only thing that I thought was possible to do. That if I loved anything else, then I'm abandoning my music. And so it really wasn't until the professor said what he had to say that actually made me realize that, you know, it's okay to be passionate about a lot of things. As a matter of fact, we should be passionate about a lot of things. And so I think that was, aside the fact that PCC allowed me to get out of the cage, then I think that it was really that. And I just want to say, if I can, and I know maybe this is not the appropriate time, but my brother has had HIV for the last 15 years. And so Jamal, I just want to give a special thank you for the work that you do, because he wouldn't be here today without that.
Thank you for sharing that, Dave. So Miguel, how about you? How did you find yourself entering into the line of work you're in? Was there a specific turning point or something that inspired you or prompted a direction for you?
You know what, to be honest, in middle school, I went to Thomas Starr King Middle School, which is here in LA. And we had a specific counselor dedicated to kind of push us to decide on a career. And I remember that day, that day when they came and they talked to us, and I was like, okay, I want to do something with technology. You know, I want to design something. And ever since that day, I've always been very curious and very like trying to solve issues and trying to solve problems. And it's been a passion of mine. The only roadblock that I had was my immigration status. So I'm a DACA recipient. So at the time, I couldn't qualify for any financial aid. So I had to wait. I think I was at PCC for 6 years, just waiting for something to happen. And then finally, California approved the California Dream Act, which allowed me to get funds to be able to go to a university. And as soon as that happened, I just like went off, you know, I had internships, I had jobs, I propelled. So hopefully my story can help somebody out there, you know, like, you know, that they're trying to give up, but don't commit, stick to it and do it. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Kevin, how about you? How did you find yourself in your current line of work? Was there a turning point that was particularly important?
I think there was for me, but early on, I think I had a lot of influences from my dad. He was an engineer himself, and also one of his things he liked to do on his side was like his do-it-yourself projects. As a kid, you kind of get roped into that. So I was always asked to help, and in these projects, there was a lot of critical thinking, a lot of trial and error, and I kind of developed those problem-solving skills early on. And I knew at a young age that I wanted to do something that solved problems. Coming to PCC, I was actually an electrical engineer major. And the way I decided that was by taking a college brochure and marking off everything I didn't like. And I ended up at electrical engineering. One of the biggest turning points for me was when I took my first computer science class. And I met people who had worked in software before, and they introduced me to the idea of hackathons. And a hackathon is essentially an invention marathon, and groups of students gather together to throw together a project idea and to develop that and to over the span of hours or days. And then at the end, there's a judging. And I think that was a very magical experience for me to see. I had just taken my first computer science class to see the possibilities that technology could do.
Thank you, Kevin. Now, before we move on to our next group of questions, I just wanted to read from the chat. Taryn is asking Dave, and he's answered, but I don't know if he has anything he wants to add. Taryn is asking Dave, have you played with creative coding and using code to make music? Dave, do you have anything to add? You put a short little response in here. I don't know how complicated this could end up being. So do you have anything you'd like to add for Taryn?
It could get very complicated.
Okay.
Yes, I have been playing with it for a while. And so I just want to give all my students who are not in my CS8 class yet, it's coming.
Excellent. And Dolly has posted some links for students about, looks like development opportunities through Microsoft. So you might take a look at those links as we're proceeding. Jackie, would you like to take over?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I am honestly just in awe of our panelists and, you know, their trajectories, the hurdles, and how they've overcome and achieved where, you know, the careers that they're in today. So big kudos to all 6 of our panelists here in this space today. My question to you is, could you tell us a little bit about, you know, interesting trends, innovations, new discoveries that you see coming out in your industry that you'd be able to share with our attendees today?
Jackie, I can start with that. So I did post a few links because I wasn't sure if some of the students are going to drop early. So this way you can save them. So like I mentioned, I actually support skilling for students for Microsoft. And some of the most interesting trends are coming out in higher ed. Actually, believe it or not, you guys are prime with community colleges because they are going to become the front and center of education systems. There's a lot of questions, especially after COVID, about the use for four-year degrees. And, you know, in historically, some of the schools that were, I would say, the most notorious for high tuition rates, it was about that on-campus experience. Well, COVID has taught us that you can still get the education, but not necessarily need the on-campus experience. So community colleges are becoming front and center, and even the government, the new education ministry that's coming in, there's a huge focus on industry skills for specifically through community colleges. So I think you're going to see that more and more. So definitely look at your education as not only the great professors and the teachers that are here, but also the industry connections that you can make. So that's why I posted some of these links. They're free, they're available to you all. Take a look at it. LinkedIn did an analysis of some of the top 10 jobs that are open right now, and the skilling for it is free through the end of the year. So hopefully you'll see that more and more emphasis on kind of this for the fourth industrial revolution, there's more emphasis on industry skills, some kind of technical skills in addition to your actual credentials, you know, the diploma. And I'm happy to take any questions here.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dolly. And, you know, we pride ourselves at PCC for truly emphasizing, you know, that our students, in order for them to get a competitive edge in the workforce, they need to have a combination of, you know, academic degrees, technical skills, transferable skills. So everything you shared on here, I think is amazing. I myself am bookmarking them for future reference. But thank you so much for sharing that. I know that we also
Okay, I guess the recording is back now. I want to talk a little bit about the technologies we use in the navigation industry, in the automobile navigation industry. So for example, I'm seeing a lot of interesting trends right now where cars are sort of supporting the enhanced driving. So I don't know, for example, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, where you can plug in your phone and suddenly your dashboard becomes your smartphone, and you can have that hands-off ability to call, text, and it makes driving just so much easier. In addition to that, I also think there are some amazing innovations with the autonomous driving, with autonomous emergency braking, the smart, what's the word? Just a lot of the technologies that make driving much more safer, like rear view cameras or blind spot cameras. And another thing is for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, how it turns your smartphone into your navigation system, essentially. This also solves a very real problem with older models that don't come out with all these newer units. So for example, your older car can take an after mark a head unit, plug it in, and use your phone as a navigation system.
Awesome, Kevin. Thank you so much. And yeah, that recording button was like spot on as soon as you started there. Is there anyone else in our panelist group that would like to contribute to this? Otherwise, we could definitely move on to the next question.
I'll just add that it is a very exciting time to be in HIV treatment and prevention. I don't know if anybody has seen, but in the pharmaceutical world, one of the most exciting advances that we have on the forefront right now is injectable preventive drugs as well as treatment drugs. So right now, the landscape looks as though you have to be adherent to a daily oral pill for both treatment and prevention if you're on what we call HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP. However, in the landscape, we just had the first HIV treatment drug injectable that is approved. So individuals that are HIV positive would only have to come in to see their physician once every 2 months to get a shot, and they no longer have to take a daily pill. And then on the HIV prevention front, there is a Q3 month shot, meaning every 3 months you have to come in for a shot. And that would basically prevent you from getting HIV. It's 99% effective. So it's a very exciting time to be in the field. A lot of advances. There's a potential pill coming out that you might only have to take it once a year in order to prevent HIV, and another preventative option where you take an oral pill once a month to to treat HIV. So a lot of different things coming out. And of course, with COVID as well, we have a treatment for COVID. Vaccination processes are down the line. So infectious disease is really becoming such an innovative field and really has changed the landscape. And we wouldn't be where we are today with COVID if it wasn't for the history that we have treating and dealing with the HIV pandemic in the background. So
that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you all so much for contributing to that. I'll turn it over to you, Martha, and you can walk us into the next question.
Okay, great. So we're going to turn our attention to advice you might have for our students, and many of you have already, shared some really helpful advice about, how to view what's going on, how to approach changes in your career. So what I want to ask you is, what do you think is, and some of you have addressed this as well, what do you think has helped you to get where you are today? And what advice would you give to someone who is getting started? And this actually goes to a discussion that's going on in the chat a little bit. Are there any specific things you would recommend people would look for, as they're trying to figure out where they're heading? And I'm going to wrap this up with our next question because they're kind of really related. Are there things that you wish you would have done differently in the past to help you better get where you want to be? I think they're two sides of the same coin. So we'll throw all those in there together. So I'm wondering if Lou would like to say any words about any of this to get us started.
Sure. So I would say one thing I really recommend students to try, and also help me myself, is to network. So a little bit like my own experience with how I landed my current job. Well, I went to UCLA for a MBA program, and as many of you probably know, MBA is pretty much a program for social and networking. You talk to people, exchange information, and attend a lot of the events and get to know people. And so we have, because I joined an investment club, we had a lot of like the social events with local investment firms. And one of the stop is my current company. So I went there, and HR toured us in the company, and we had a talk. And I grabbed the opportunity to chat with HR, like grading and stuff. And then like a while later in another event, I happened to met the same HR again. So I actually just walked to her and say, hey, do you remember me? And then we started conversation. And then one thing led to another. I'm like, oh, I'm actually actively looking. And then just say, oh, I actually have a position you may try. How about you just email your resume to me directly? Well, my company is actually pretty hard to get in because a lot of applicants and a lot of like from those already working or from students. So I actually had the very lucky to get myself in front of her and have her remembered me. And I'm not saying like network just with HR, because my case is pretty lucky. I would say you network with every possible, like everyone basically. One thing students can do, and I did myself, is like I just open my LinkedIn and look up for alumni, like people I can reach out, say, oh, hey, I graduated from UIC before and I saw you did too, and I'm really interested in what you're doing right now. Can we schedule a 10 minutes talk? Let me call you, and then maybe you can tell me a little bit about what you do. And that's actually kind of answer Edward's question as well. Like, what if I don't have a passion? Talk to people with different traits. They're in different traits. You talk to me, I tell you what investment is. And you talk to Jamal tell you how it looks like work in Gilead. And things, it's not like you don't have a passion, maybe you just haven't found it yet. And you know more things, you know more like day-to-day work of different professions, and maybe you start realize, oh, I want to try that. I want to start here. And I think that's a very good starting point. You just network with people, alumni, or friends, and to get yourself started.
Thank you, Lou. That's great advice. It's hard to start when you haven't tried to network at first, but my experience was it gets easier the more you try it. The first time's really, really frightening.
Oh, the first, very awkward. Like you cold call someone you never talked before, you don't know, and you have the fear that, oh, what if he or she doesn't want to talk with me? But then, well, I started working for a couple of years, and there are like students cold calling me, or not cold calling, like reach out to me from LinkedIn and say, oh, I went to the same UCLA program. Can you talk with me? And from my perspective, I don't really feel anything. I just like, I was helped before, so I very willing to give back. So if people reach out to me, I'm okay to share my experience and give tips or what I know may help them to grow. So I think just put fear aside a little bit, and then just start from one, and then you'll see how easy it is. And even if you get rejection, so what? You try the next person gonna help you.
Thank you, Lou. What about you, Jamal? Do you have anything you'd like to add on this topic?
Yeah, sure. My trajectory has definitely not been the most direct. And I want to give a shout out to my mother. She's actually on the line too. She's listening in. And she's had to bear with my indirect route throughout this whole process and watching me get to my first real job. But I'll be real brief. I know we're short on time, but number one, I would say, don't listen to people who try to squash your dreams. I've had a number of people that have judged me from the beginning and said, you can't do that. Starting from middle school to high school to college, there's always going to be people who say you can't do something. And if you really believe in yourself and you want to achieve it, I say go for it. And leading into my second point, create a personal board of directors. And what I mean by personal board of directors is people that believe in you, they believe in your dream, they see your passion, and you can call on them at any time. So of course, you know, most corporations have board of directors. I think you need to have a personal one. So I have a list of people that I know anytime I'm making a major decision or going down a different path that might be, you know, out of the ordinary, call them. And another thing that I want to add on to what Lou said is don't be afraid to reach out to people whether it's on networking, LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whatever, don't be afraid to reach out to people because it's so critical. And I especially say this to many of my Black and Brown colleagues. We're very timid when it comes to networking, to showing our self-worth for a number of different reasons that would probably take a whole dissertation in a book or two or a library, right? But I think it's so important for us to find people that look like us in spaces that we traditionally don't exist and ensure that we connect with those people. Because you have to remember, our ancestors sacrificed their lives for us to be in these circles. If you were born in my mother's time, my mother was born in 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. They just started desegregating schools in the South. So she knows what it's like to go to the Black school versus the white school. So I think it's very important that we have that perspective and that we remember that people actually died for us to have these opportunities. So don't be bashful. Go into these rooms, know who you are, know who you represent, know where you come from, and be very proud of what you have to offer.
I just want to say +1, +100 to everything you just shared, Jamal. I really think we need to take a moment and kind of take in what he just shared, because we are, the society's living through a change, right, with Black and Brown and women. I hope there's a day where we don't talk about women in STEM, because I do way too many of those. But I think we really should look at the opportunities that are available to you all, to us, and remember the sacrifices that were made. So I wanted to say thank you to saying that.
Yeah. Thank you to that. Miguel, do you have anything you'd like to add? I think all of our panelists probably have something to contribute on this topic. So Miguel.
Right, yeah.
To you.
So yeah, like for example, when I was at PCC, I first started, I ended up going into the MESA program, and I met Melville Alvarez, and she introduced me into this whole program. She's like, oh, we're gonna, get through this. She talked to me, and it was that networking, that starting point. That was literally the first starting point of my career. And like I mentioned before, I stayed there for about 5 years at PCC. And throughout my time there, she helped me get a job at the IT office at PCC. So I was a student worker at PCC. Then she helped me get an internship at USC at USIT. And that's where I also interned with Dave. And after that internship, she helped me, with the whole going to Cal Poly Pomona. And then when I was at Cal Poly Pomona, I ended up getting a job there because I met people, I talked to people, I networked, and I was in the EOP program at Cal Poly. And so they helped me get a student job, and I was working as an assistant for the dean's office, IT, fixing their printers, fixing their computers, all this stuff. And then after that, I networked with my professor, and she told me about Luxma. She's like, oh, they're looking for interns, but she's like, she emphasized you have to be very, very smart. You have to be very, very dedicated, and you have to have a very, very high GPA. I didn't care. I took it. I interned. I went. And they ended up liking me. They're like, oh, you know what? We want you to intern here. So I ended up interning there. And after I graduated, they ended up offering me a full-time job. And I've been there ever since. So since I graduated Cal Poly, I've been at Luxma. And, now I'm like, basically kind of like managing my own stuff. Like my boss kind of like oversees me a little bit, but he kind of like let the reins go. He's like, all right, he knows what he's doing, like he's taking care of the stuff that he needs to do. So to everybody out there, stay focused, commit, dedicate, and network. Talk to people. Don't be scared. It's talk to people. Tell them what you're going through. Tell them what's going on in your life, and they may not have all the solutions or answers to your problems, but at least you're getting yourself out there. So don't be scared to do that. To network.
Thank you, Miguel. Kevin, how about you? Do you have anything you'd like to add to this conversation?
Well, I think I'm learning a lot here today too from everyone. Yeah. So for me, I think there are 2 points I want to say for advice for students. One is to stay informed. So I don't think I really had an organization to fall back on when I was back at PCC, but I had my professors and my classmates and students who were going through the same thing. And it's easier. Sometimes you're a little shy to ask professors questions or I guess administration questions. It's easier to move as a group At the same time, you have classmates you can bounce your ideas off. So if you don't understand concepts, this is something you can do together. And a lot of resources at PCC and Cal Poly helped me as well. I remember there would be lectures in Harbison Hall right behind the offices, panels like this where industry people from industry come out and talk about their experiences. Those were extremely helpful. Additionally, there are, I think, career centers where they do mock interviews, hiring events, career fairs. They also do resume workshops. There are things on campus around you. I urge you to take advantage of that and to use those opportunities. The people here on campus are here for you. These are educators who care about you, and I think this is something all students should know.
Thank you, Kevin. That is very true. I can speak for the administration and the faculty. And with that, I want to turn it over to Dave. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to add on this topic? Any advice for someone who's getting started, things you'd wish you'd done differently, or anything you want to follow on here with?
Yeah, you know, everyone hit the nail on the head. I think that it's very important to know that no is temporary. When someone says, no, you can't, or no, I'm not going to help you, that's just temporary. And it's up to you to change that no to a yes and do whatever means you can. It's very important. And of course, I may have some bias right here, right? But it's important that your professor knows your name. They know your face, that if they saw you in the supermarket, they're going to be like, oh, shoot, let me make sure that I'm correct, right? It's important for that. And that's going to be with anyone that you meet as well, right? Make sure that you are known. If you stand in the back, no one's going to know who you are. So it's also important for your professor, right? It's their job to give you the information that you came there for. So if you are not getting the information from them, then you force them to get that information, right? That is your right as a student. You paid for that, and it's their job. So you have to make sure that you get what you pay for. What are some of the things that were challenging for me was not taking that advice, right? Having to learn that. But once I learned that, then things got a lot easier. Also, you know, I wish I would have done a more variety of internships. I think internships are very important. Not just for the work experience, but also being able to create relationships with different types of people, right? When you're in the school environment, you're around students, you're around professors. When you go to internship, you're around a lot of different types of people, a lot of different types of personalities, and just learn how to create relationships with them. They have some knowledge that you need, right? And you have knowledge that they need. And just always understand that everyone that you meet has something that you need, and that's some knowledge.
Thank you, Dave. So I'm going to turn this over to Jackie. We have about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to turn this over to Jackie in case there are any questions or to help us with the wrap up.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you so much. This has been just an amazing, amazing panel. We did get a question here from Tareen, and I think it speaks to what you just shared, Dave. It says, what would someone recommend if a student has different professors for every class each semester, and maybe someone is anxious about their professors being busy? So I think it speaks to like the whole like being approachable and building the relationship with your professor. Maybe Dave, if you had a piece of advice here.
I think if you have a different professor every semester, awesome. Now you have that many more professors that you have a relationship with. And if you have a relationship with that professor, then they will never say, oh, go talk to your current professor when you have a question for them, right? They may say that if they have no idea who you are, they say, who is this random person sending me this email? Why don't they talk to their professor, right? I mean, hopefully they don't. I don't want to be that type of person, but if they know who you are, they're going to help you, right? So not only do you have the old, not only do you have the new, but you also have the old who are there to help you. So why not? Go ahead, get a new professor every time. And honestly, if they're busy, if they know you and you create a relationship, they probably won't be as busy.
I love that. And you know, considering that both Kevin and Miguel went to PCC, what was your experience like, right? Like, how were, you know, what piece of advice do you have for students at PCC for building those relationships with faculty?
I guess I'll go first. So like I mentioned earlier, so when I first got to PCC, it was a whole new experience. And when I met Melva, it was very like a welcoming, warming interaction with them. So, and it's not going to always be like that. So don't always expect it to be a very welcoming. Some professors are extremely busy, but you know, your goal is to get that connection. Your goal is to be able to establish that relationship, you know, and whatever it takes, you know, maybe it's not going to be the first time you meet them. Maybe it won't be the second time, maybe not the 10th time, but it's that commitment for yourself to be able to establish that relationship. So my recommendation is, you know, don't give up, you know, keep on going, try, and keep at it.
Wonderful.
And if I may just add one thing, I did post it here, make mistakes. It's okay, keep trying, keep at it, keep going, make mistakes, because we're like taught to not make mistakes. And all of us here are telling you it's okay to try things. It's okay to put yourself out there, right? Lean into those opportunities. Even if it's something that you end up saying, you know what, this is not my cup of tea, or my cup of coffee, whatever your beverage of choice is. But it's okay, because the more you try, the more you'll find out. And to the person who had the passion question, I think every one of us, if we could sit here for the next like 2-3 hours telling you how maybe what we thought was our passion wasn't really our passion, right? And the way we figured it out by trying, by making mistakes. I actually have had the privilege of working for managers and leaders who have said, Dolly, unless you're making mistakes, I don't think you're trying hard enough. So if there's something we can leave you with, is that. And feel free to reach out to us. We're all very approachable. We're not, hopefully we're not as scary as some of the professors, although I'm a huge fan of professors in my world. But feel free to reach out. You know, this is your career. You all own it. We're here to support you. This was just an hour, but you have your whole life ahead of you. So if we could be of help, I'm sure all my panelists would agree.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you so much. I cannot believe it's already 4 o'clock, but at this time, I'm going to ask all of our amazing panelists if you're okay with sharing your contact information, whether it be LinkedIn, an email address. Please do take this, next minute to drop that information on the chat. Other than that, I want to say, Dolly, Jamal, Lou, Dave, Miguel, Kevin, thank you all so much for taking, the time out of your busy schedules today to be here with us. Martha and I were really thrilled to co-moderate this session, and we absolutely look forward to the next time. Thank you to all of our attendees today. We hope that you found this time to be enjoyable and informative and beneficial to you for your future endeavors. Thank you all.
Yeah,
Take
thank you for
care.
having us.
I would like to say thank you to all the panelists